Hey, what's happening, y'all? It's me coming at you again with another vid. Now, this is going to be a cordial response to Shawn Newton. Now, this is a video response regarding his assessment on the heavyweight division. Now, in that video, he was calling out guys who are making, were making assertions that, racism is involved, plays a toll in the heavyweight division and whatnot. And he wanted to call him out on that. And I mean, that's his prerogative. If Shawn, that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. Fine, so be it. But I'm not gonna respond to you based off that nature. I'm gonna respond to you based off your assertions that that you said that the heavyweight division is not a better division than the middleweights, and you also made an assertion that no one was talking about the heavyweight division a year ago, which I'm gonna point out a lot of inaccuracies in your statements, and you have a lot of errors in there, sir. And this is a respectful response, so I'm gonna go ahead and respond to you, and then if you want to go ahead and respond to me, that's fine. If it's done respectfully, cool. Got no problem with that. Okay. Now, in that video, you made, you called out the guys regarding, the comparison. You made some comparisons between Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua, resume-wise. You said that Anthony Joshua's resume is way better than Deontay Wilder's. Well, I hate to say this. I beg to differ on that, and I disagree with you. I say their resumes are equally matched, and here's why. Before Anthony Joshua got his big fight with Charles Martin, his greatest win on his record was against Kevin Johnson. Now, credit to Joshua. I think that was a significant win, and here's why. Kevin Johnson was been in there against all the great, all the good, high-profile, legit heavyweight contenders, including once heavyweight champion Vitaly Klitschko. Okay? He been in there with those guys. Yes, he didn't beat those guys. However, Kevin Johnson was not stopped by either one of them. He was never knocked out or stopped by either one of them. Anthony Joshua was the only guy that was able to blow out Johnson in 2 rounds. Tyson Fury couldn't even knock him out. So that's how legit and a tough a fighter that Kevin Johnson was. Even though he was a bit of an underachiever, but he was a very tough, legit heavyweight, and no one could knock this guy out. And Anthony Joshua took him out in 2 rounds. That was very impressive. Sergey Lovovich for Deontay Wilder. Before he got a shot at Severn, he fought Sergey Lovovich, who actually who actually had a high profile fight with Shannon Briggs. And so Lovovich was boxing Briggs' head off before he got caught and got knocked out in the last round. But he was a former world champion. And Deontay Wilder KO'd him in the first round and pretty much put him in almost in a seizure when he knocked his ass out. Knocked him out badly. Jesus. Okay? Now, both fighters, when they both got their title shots, they both fought guys who were coming off wins, both defending champions when they both won their titles in a vacant fashion. That's Charles Martin and Bermane Stiverne. Okay? Now, they were both ranked at the top 10. As you said, as you pointed out, you said that Wilder beat Stiverne and he wasn't ranked in the top 10. Well, you're wrong about that because Stiverne was actually ranked in the top 10 when Wilder fought him, before Wilder fought him, and he's still ranked in the top 10. All right? So Stiverne, lost. Wilder beat him in a very, very dominating fashion in a pretty exciting, entertaining fight. Okay? Charles Martin, on the other hand, whether you want to call him a paper champion or not, great. But, that's your prerogative. But he was ranked in the top 10 before he got stopped by Anthony Joshua. Okay? Now, I would say is this, though. I would give Joshua a slight edge in the resume comparison because he's able to accomplish these things in 16 pro fights as opposed to Wilder's 36 pro fights. But after Wilder had beaten Stiverne, I know a lot of people wanted to give him flack for the Eric Molina fights and the Juan Duwapa's fights, and yes, and Arthur Spilka's fights. But let's make this clear. Eric Molina just knocked out Thomas Adamek, okay? Yeah, you could argue that Thomas Adamek was not the same fighter. He's out way past his prime, whatnot. But many people expected Adamek to win that fight against Molina. Molina had to travel to Poland, Adamek's home crowd backyard, to fight him, and he beat him and knocked him out in the 12th round. and Molina was losing that fight. He knocked him out. So now him knocking out Automac puts him back in in the hunt for a title. I'm not saying he's going to get an immediate title shot, but he's back in there and he's going to be ranked very high now. Juan Hoppus, who's a tough guy, who took Deontay Wilder to 11 rounds, okay, and jabbed Deontay Wilder to death to where he puffed up Wilder's left eye, okay. This Juan Hoppus just knocked out Robert Helenius, all right. This is a Robert Helenius who never been stopped before, who some people will argue who lost to Derek Chisora in their fight a few years ago in Holland. Many people expected Hoppus to lose that fight against Helenius and knocked him out. And now that Hoppus is the silver champion of WBC, he's going to be ranked in the top 5, and he may be aligned to get another shot at Wilder or Povetkin, whoever the winner is. So we'll see how that turns out. So now those guys, after beating Wilder, they became legitimate contenders now. Funny how the world works, because now they were called bums. They were called bums when Wilder fought them, and now that the fact that they're coming off their biggest profile wins of their careers, and they're back in the title hunt. Now they're legit. So, and the same could go for Artur Szpilka. Now, a lot of people were calling Szpilka a bum, but he gave Wilder a run from his money. And Szpilka was ranked high in the WBC, but yeah, he was ranked in the top 15, I believe, at the time in the world. So, and he gave Deontay Wilder a very, very tough fight. And that's probably the toughest fight of Wilder's career at this point. And I had Szpilka winning that fight before he got caught and got knocked out in the 9th round. So, with that said, sir, I don't understand how you could say that Anthony Joshua's resume is better than Wilder at this point. And don't get me wrong, Anthony Joshua, only toughest fight he had was against Dillian Whyte, and that he almost got knocked out in that fight. So that was a very, very tough fight for Joshua. But at this point, I would say their resumes are equally, or if you want to give the edge to Joshua because he got done more in 16 pro fights opposed to Wilder, who did in 36 fights. Okay, so be it. But I would say that Wilder has fought, a little bit tougher opposition than Joshua at this point. I have to be honest. He has. No question about it. Okay? Now, you also mentioned that Severn, before Wilder fought Severn actually won his title at a time when he was not ranked against a guy who was not ranked in the top 10. Well, actually, he did. He beat Kirsty Ariella. Ariella was ranked in the top 10 when Severn fought him. So you're wrong in that area. And you also mentioned that Luis Ortiz didn't beat anybody significance. Well, you're wrong in that area. He beat Brian Jennings, which was a very tough fight. And this is the same Brian Jennings who knocked out Artur Szpilka. This is the same Brian Jennings who beat Mike Perez. If you don't know who he is, take a look at that fight. Okay, yes, it was a good fight. Some people felt that Jennings lost it. Some people felt that Jennings won it. So it could have gone either way. This is the same Brian Jennings who took Vladimir Klitschko to 12 rounds and gave him a pretty tough fight. All right, and this is the same Brian Jennings has never been stopped prior to Ortiz stopping him. So nobody expected that knockout to happen, in a way. But with that said, I have to dismiss that notion that you're going to say that Ortiz didn't beat anybody significant, but he just beat Brian Jennings, and yeah, he beat Tony Thompson. Okay, yes, Tony Thompson is way over the hill, whatnot, but this Tony Thompson was avoided by many people. Okay, nobody wanted to fight this guy. He had to go overseas to take fights. So, yeah, he got Thompson out of there. Okay, this is the same Tony Thompson who knocked out David Price twice. All right, it's funny how that works, how the world works, I should say. Okay, and you also went on to say that how can anybody say that the heavyweight division is not the best division right now? You can say how can anybody say the heavyweight division is the best division, is a great division, yet that nobody was talking about it a year ago. And you're trying to compare the heavyweights to the middleweights, because I know that's where you were going with this. And the reason why you point this out is because your favorite fighter fights in that division. Well, let me tell you something about that. You're wrong in that assertion as well. Because a year ago, have you noticed, we've had loads of heavyweight fights before Klitschko had lost to Fury. Okay? Before that, we had many channels that were talking about the heavyweight division. You had Hatman Strikes Back, who was talking about the heavyweight division few years ago. You had Mr. Boxing Today, who was talking about the heavyweight division faithfully, religiously. You have Blood Boxing talking about the heavyweight division. You have Boston Beats and Rhymes talking about the heavyweight division. You had 78 Sports TV talking about the heavyweight division. So all those guys were talking about the heavyweight division, man. And the reason why it was not getting the spotlight as it was back then is not because Vladimir Klitschko was non-black. I know that's where you were going with this. No, that is not true. And let me tell you why that's not true. Vladimir Klitschko, to his credit, did dominate the division. Okay? This was about almost a decade ago. He dominated at a time where you had fighters like Samuel Peter, Asim Rockman, who else? James Toney at the time. But he didn't fight James Toney. I know that. He didn't fight James Toney. But we all know that James Toney was overweighted, way over the hill. He fought, he beat Eddie Chambers and the Kirk Johnsons, whatnot. Then later, beat Alexander Povetkin's, which was in a very dirty way. Kobrat Pulev, which was a damn good, entertaining fight. He beat the Marius Walks, which was a terrible mismatch. And Ruslan Jagaev's. Okay, so yes, I get all that. But here's the thing. When the Asim Rockmans and the Samuel Peters around, Vladimir Klitschko was not an exciting fighter. That is a fact. Let me provide you an example. When he fought Samuel Peter back in 2005, 11 years ago, I believe, that was the first fight. When HBO was broadcasting that fight, Harold Letterman, I think it was in the 8th or 9th round, Harold Letterman was criticizing and was being very, very vocal about Vladimir Klitschko's performance against Samuel Peter in that fight. In the fight where Peter knocked him down 3 times, which was a flash knockdown in my opinion, he was vocally criticizing Klitschko because he felt that Klitschko wasn't trying to fight his heart out to win that fight. He felt that Klitschko wasn't trying to take any chances. He virtually thought he was fighting scared. Okay? Because Klitschko in that fight was just jabbing, holding, leaning on Peter so that way he could zap his energy. Just the same strategy, the tactics that he employed against Alexander Povetkin. Okay? So he said that is a terrible way to fight if you're a heavyweight. This is Harold Letterman. This is what he said. This is not coming from me. So if you don't believe me, take a look at that fight and you'll catch Harold Letterman's comments. And kind of coincidentally, ironically, George Foreman was defending Klitschko's performance. All right? And I thought that was pretty, I thought that Klitschko was fighting a bit scared too, because he was afraid to take chances against Samuel Peter. Real talk. Okay? And years after that, he fought a couple years after that, I believe, he fought a unification bout against Sultan Ibragimov. The same Sultan Ibragimov who beat Shannon Briggs for the title and in his first defense beat Evander Holyfield. Okay? Now, Ibragimov, when he fought Ibragimov, that was a terrible, terrible snooze fest of a fight. Klitschko didn't even engage. He fought too cautiously, and that turned out to be a disastrous, boring fight. And after that fight, HBO decided to no longer broadcast any more Vladimir Klitschko fights at that point before he fought Jennings. No more of his fights. Okay? And even Showtime didn't even want to bother broadcasting his fights. And from there, Vladimir Klitschko had no choice but to go overseas to Germany, his backyard, Ukraine and Russia, to fight there and take fights because those are the only people, the only networks that were there. That's the only way he could go and get televised fights at. Okay? That's the only way he can get televised fights. And the reason why the up-and-coming fighters like Deontay Wilder, Tyson Fury, and Anthony Joshua, you name it, those guys weren't getting title shots then is because Vladimir Klitschko fights were not being televised, and he refused to fight outside of his comfort zone at that time. He refused to do it at that point. So, yeah, that would explain it, okay? So, him, not getting the credit that he is has nothing to do with his ethnicity, man. That's where you're totally wrong about that. Now, about the pound-for-pound situation with Floyd Mayweather, yes, I can agree with you in that area. That is debatable because Vladimir Klitschko actually did clean out his division. He got all 3 belts. He beat every single champion for those belts. Floyd did the same thing, too. But Floyd didn't always fight the best in his division. Vladimir did. We'll give him credit for that. However, the only fight that he did not want to fight and the only fighter that he didn't fight for the other belt, which is the WBC, was Vitaly Klitschko, his older brother. So they were never going to fight. So, yeah. So Vladimir cleaned out his division, beat all the other prime contenders in his division. Yes, I can understand your gripe in that situation. Why why would Floyd be left? Floyd didn't even fight the very best in his division. I've argued that myself. So yeah, this is the debate that you can have with anyone about. All right, but to sit there and have this assertion that the heavyweight division is not exciting, is not more exciting than the middleweight division, you're totally wrong. And let's go to the middleweight division for a second. A year ago, we only had 2 profile fights that I could think of. We had the David Lemieux versus Gennady Golovkin, and we had Miguel Cotto versus Canelo Alvarez. Those are 2 high profile fights that we had last year in the middleweight division. Okay. Other than that, if you go back to the heavyweights, last year we had Wilder versus Tavern. We had Fury versus Vladimir. Then we have Vladimir versus we have Fury versus Vladimir. Yeah, I was right about that. We had Jennings versus Ortiz. We had Jennings versus Vladimir. We had Dillian White versus Anthony Joshua. You're telling me, Shawn, that those 5 fights, which are all entertaining fights by the mind, except for the Fury and Klitschko fight. Yes, that was not too exciting, but yes, it was not too boring either. Aside from that, you're telling me that those other fights that I mentioned were not more exciting than the other 2 fights that happened in the middleweight division, the only 2 profile fights that we had last year? Okay, now the Canelo and Cotto fight wasn't too entertaining. Yes, it was not too boring, but it wasn't that entertaining. I mean, the Lemieux and Golovkin fight, yes, it was one-sided, and Golovkin got Lemieux out of there. That was the only exciting part about that fight. But other than that, what other middleweight fights are being happen at this point, Shawn? I'm sorry, I misspoke there. What other exciting middleweight fights have we seen at this point after those 2 fights? Huh? What other fights have we had? Right now in the heavyweight division, we got top tier guys who are fighting each other. They don't care who it is. They're going to fight somebody, okay? And they're going to knock somebody out. And that's what I like about the heavyweight division. I like the mentality of those fighters. They're there to prove themselves and fight the best. They don't care about there's no rehydration clauses. There's no catch weights. You're going to fight in the division whether the guy's going to be bigger than you or there's going to be a guy that's going to be a little bit smaller than you. If you're a small heavyweight, yes, you can have like a 205-pound heavyweight like Steve Cunningham. Then you have an option to go down to cruiserweight. All right? But Evander Holyfield in his whole career was always a small heavyweight. All right, he's fought guys that outweighed him about 40 or 50 pounds throughout the majority of his career. All right, he never complained about weight advantages or reach advantages, whatnot. He went in there and proved himself. And this is the reason why he has a resume that he has right now. And there's nobody in boxing that could compare to Evander Holyfield's resume. Nobody, in my opinion, in modern time. Nobody. And I know I had this debate about somebody about Floyd and Evander's resume, but that's a while ago. But anyways, yeah, so I don't, agree with your assertions about the heavyweights, man. And I think I'm not saying that you're doing this deliberately, but you're sweeping these guys under the rug, and I think that's inaccurate. Now, as far as the middleweights, let's talk about the middleweight division. Gennady Golovkin, he hasn't fought no one there of any of noteworthy. The only high-pro fight that he got so far is David Lemieux. That's it. Okay, I give him credit for that fight. Okay, I give him credit for that. I'm not going to take that away from him. He got a unification bout. He's able to pick up another belt, so now he has the WBA and the IBF title. Okay, now you also have to understand that no one's fighting each other in the heavyweight division. In the middleweight division. Since Golovkin cannot fight the other middleweight champions, it's kind of ironic and strange that the other middleweight champions are not fighting each other. So how does that work? If you're ducking the one guy who's being feared by everybody, but why is it that the other middleweight champions are not fighting each other? Huh? Is it about money, Shawn? Possibly. It could be money. But every champion has ducked them, so it's very inexcusable. And Golovkin himself, or his team by that matter, they're very confused about this point of whether they should go up to weight, take fights or not. And they've been very inconsistent recently. So I know I say my piece about that, but that's what it is. So how can you justify a division that where the other champions are ducking one guy who's being feared, who's a high profile, the biggest star of that division, while they're not fighting each other? And the only profile fight that we have right now is Demir Khan, who's never fought in the middleweight division, against Canelo Alvarez, who's being the bitch right now because he refuses to defend it at 155. Refuses to defend it at 160, but only fights it at 155 catchweight. How can you justify that, Shawn? Better yet, you defending guys in the lower weight classes that are ducking each other. Like, for example, with Carl Frampton, ducked Guillermo Rigondeaux shamelessly. Inexcusable. You're defending that. And the reason why you're defending that, because in your own words, you say it's about the money. Guillermo Rigondeaux don't bring no money. That's what you're saying. I say, okay, fine. If that's what you say, then explain to me why did Carl Frampton or Barry McGuigan refuse to negotiate with the man? If this was about money, then they should at least sat down and talked to him and discuss about a split. They did not attempt to do so. So that money argument is not going to work. It's not going to work. It's a blatant duck. There's no excuse for it. But if you want to defend Frampton for that, fine. That's your prerogative. But that right there is very shameful, and Carl Frampton should not get a pass for that. And he should be rightfully criticized for that. And you, sir, have criticized other fighters at the time for ducking other fighters or ducking mandatories in the past. Almost a similar reason that Frampton did it. So, yeah, so you can't, I don't understand how you could defend middleweights. You could defend a division where all the pussyfoot is happening, all the top fighters are not fighting each other, while in the heavyweights, we're actually getting good fights. Guys are fighting each other. Champions are trying to unify. All the big fights are happening. Look at the latest calendar right now. We got Wilder versus Povetkin. Joseph Parker versus Carlos Takam, which is going to be a dangerous fight for Parker. A dangerous fight against Carlos Takam, who actually was in a war with Alexander Povetkin a couple years ago. That was actually, I believe, one of the Fight of the Year candidate. And we got David Haye versus Arnold Jurjaev. I know everybody is dismissing Arnold Jurjaev, but I think Jurjaev is going to give a much better effort and much better fight than Mark DeMori did against Haye. And I thought DeMori took a dive, if you ask me. But better yet, we could potentially see Shannon Briggs versus David Haye. And better yet, we could see Anthony Joshua next fight against Malik Scott. That's going to be a good fight. So you're telling me, Shawn, out of all those heavyweight fights that's coming up and the potential heavyweight fights that will happen probably this year, you tell me those fights are no better than the middleweight fights that may not happen this year? Are you telling me that? Seriously? Oh, man. Now, before Klitschko got off the throne, we actually had some good heavyweight fights. We had Steve Cunningham. Take a look at Steve Cunningham versus the Tyson Fury fight. Take a look at the Wilder versus not Wilder. I'm sorry. Take a look at Jagayev versus Povetkin. Take a look at Takam versus Povetkin. Those were very good heavyweight fights, way before Klitschko ever got the throne. Again, you want to know why nobody was talking about him? It was because of Floyd Mayweather. He was always the center of attention, even though Floyd was a boring-ass fighter. We can agree with that on that. He was a boring-ass fighter. But you and I both know the reason why Floyd was the center of attention, because he always said things that were controversial, and he didn't give a fuck. And the reason why he didn't care is because as long as he can get people to hate him, it will garner more revenue for them to buy his fights or go buy his fights at the gate. And he was successful at doing that. We can't, that's I don't condone that practice, but him and his team made that work. It's a deceitful scheme, but it worked. Okay? And that's the reason why he's half of a billionaire right now, because of that scheme alone. I get that. And we all know Floyd's being the narcissist that he is, he cannot stand getting attention. So obviously he's going to deflect attention from from anybody, as long as we, as long as he can, I'm sorry, I'm babbling here. He can't stand the fact that he's not getting attention. So he's going to do what he can to become the center of attention as much as possible. So, yeah, again, man, I'm not, obviously, you were focusing more on the racism part, calling other guys out. I mean, in the other videos where they were trying to inject racism into the heavyweight division. I mean, that's your prerogative, fine. But my whole point of this video is I was going to call y'all on your inaccuracies on why you feel that the heavyweight division is not better than the middleweight division. Again, I can't understand how you could say that, given the fact that we had loads of good fights before the Klitschko fight and had loads of fights after Klitschko had lost to Fury. And yet the middleweights are not fighting each other. So anyways, let me know what you think. I'm signing off. Peace.